Welcome into the college basketball recap show. I'm your host, Dylan Lieck, and today I'm starting a new segment where every single night from now until Selection Sunday, I am going to be breaking down and recapping everything from each night and each day in the college basketball world. We'll go over all the big matchups and the important outcomes of each night so you can get a quick recap of what happened. And so we'll start that here in just a second. First, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got a ton of great content, including a sports podcast that we do each week. I've also got tons of gambling videos where I give my best bets. Also, check out my website, www.dylanleaksports.com. Hit that link in the description. We've gone 9-1 in our last 10 picks, 2-0 on our last two video breakdowns on YouTube. Check out my website, free picks every day. I'm trying to help you guys pick some winners. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a former basketball coach. I know these teams really well, been in the industry for a long time. So check out that stuff. But let's get into this college basketball recap. We'll start with the only ranked versus ranked matchup today, and that was Alabama, number 13 in the country, defeats Florida, who was coming in ranked for the first time in a long time this season. And Alabama wins 98-93 in overtime. Now, interesting game. Florida led for most of this game. They're up by 4 at halftime, led for the majority of the second half. They were up by as many as 9 late in the second half, almost about 6 minutes or so to play, and it really looked like they were going to win this game. Alabama couldn't buy a three in the first half, 2 of 18 from downtown in the first half, but they revamped in the second half, ended up 5 of 6 to start the second half from downtown, hit some big threes. Marcus Sears got going late in that second half, led the comeback for Bama. Walter Clayton Jr. finished with 27 to lead Florida, but he was 9 of 24 from the field and 4 of 16 from downtown, which really hurt them. Really, there was no distinct advantage I saw in the box score in this game. It was really even. Marcus Sears didn't shoot it well either. He was 5 of 15, 1 of 6 from beyond the arc, finished with 17 points. The MVP of the game for Alabama was Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson had 22. He was 9 of 14 from the field, knocked down a big three, and then with about a minute and a half or so to go, the game was hanging in the balance. Bama trailed by 3. It looked like Florida was going to pull it out, and Nelson had a massive and one finish at the rim on a drive, knocked down the free throw, and tied the game. Without that, they probably lose. Takeaways from this game, Florida's a legit NCAA tournament team. I wasn't sure early in the year. I heard people talk about them with, saying they had a lot of talent. Todd Golden's a really good coach. I like him. Did a great job at San Francisco. But, they just didn't look great early on, and he's done a heck of a job. I mean, they have wins over Auburn by double digits, Kentucky, Mississippi State. They really don't have a bad loss on their resume. They're 8-3 over their last 11 games, and in those games they lost at Tennessee, which is nothing to scoff at. Lost by 1 at A&M, which is a tough place to play, and then tonight against Alabama in a game they really could have won. So they're playing as good as anybody in the SEC right now. And kudos to Todd Golden for getting that team turned around this year because they did not look great early on. As for Alabama, I actually came away from this game a little bit unimpressed with them. They didn't shoot the ball great, and that's kind of my issue with them is they're so reliant on the three ball, and they did win the game. So kudos to them for finding a way to win on an off-shooting night. But they don't have a lot of depth. They only play 7 guys, and I notice it happens every time I watch them. Number 3, Rylan Griffin for Alabama. He's just something off about him. You look at his numbers. He shoots over 40% from 3. He's got good numbers, but the sophomore there's something off about him. He's had a number of 4 and 5 turnover games. He feels like he doesn't know when to shoot sometimes. There's games where he gets hot and he's awesome. But he had a couple shots tonight that were really, really bad shots that could have cost them. He ended up hitting a big one in overtime. But in general, I don't like that he is a big weak spot for them that I notice every time I watch them play. Maybe it's just the games I've watched, he hasn't played well, but every time I watch him, he seems to bother me. And with a lack of depth in him playing, 37 to 45 minutes, and that's about his average in terms of percentage of minutes. I'm not sure about Alabama yet. I'm not sold. like Nate Oates a lot, but they haven't had a ton of success in the tournament, and obviously lost last year early, got upset. Next game, real quick, we'll look at number 12 Illinois collapses late at Penn State on the road, loses it 90-89. This was an epic collapse. They led by 10 with under 2 minutes to play after leading by 7 at halftime. Led by 7 with the ball with 40 seconds to go. Terrence Shannon dropped 35. He was doing it all for Illinois most of the night, but he was just 2 of 7 from downtown, and he missed 6 free throws. Got to the free throw line 19 times, which is absurd to get there that many times in the college game. But 13 of 19 from the line, also had 4 turnovers. Coleman Hawkins had a real rough night, 3 of 11 from the floor, had just 9 points, 2 key free throw misses late, which we'll talk about in a second, 5 turnovers. He was really bad, and it's interesting. Those are probably their best 2 players. Damask is really good as well, so you could argue he is one of their best players as well. But those 2 guys, Hawkins and Terrence Shannon, cost them the game tonight. So Shannon has the ball. Penn State elects not to foul under a minute to go, and they essentially can run the clock down to about 30 seconds, up 7. I mean, you literally could take a shot clock violation and you win the game. And Shannon decides to shoot the ball with 8 on the shot clock, shoots a driving, tough floater. Ball goes off the rim, bounces out, and Penn State essentially gets a transition 3 off of the miss. It was almost like a turnover. And the decision to shoot it with that much time left was really, really bad. Ends up 4-point game after the 3 for Penn State. On the ensuing inbound, Shannon, when they have 2 timeouts to go, is trapped, tries to dribble through the trap, turns it over, and Penn State scores, cuts it to 2. Now, all of a sudden, the game looked over. Now, Penn State's alive. Illinois has to burn 2 timeouts to get the ball in bounds. Finally, they do, and they foul Coleman Hawkins, who's an 80% free throw shooter on the year. And what does he do? He goes to the line, and he misses both. And if that wasn't bad enough, on the final possession of the game, Coleman Hawkins then fouls a 3-point shooter and gives Penn State Zach Hicks 3 shots at the line. Illinois was only up by 2, and he makes all 3, and Illinois loses the game by 1. This is a really, really brutal and bad loss for Illinois, but it's not surprising in terms of the fact that it was Illinois who blew the lead. They've done this before. They had a game a couple weeks ago at home against Nebraska, led by 10, almost identical situation. 2 minutes to go, up double digits, blew the entire lead, and Nebraska ended up having a shot to actually win the game late. It went to overtime, and Illinois ended up winning in overtime. But same exact scenario where they blew a double-digit lead with 2 minutes to go. I mean, it's something that just should not happen. It's happened to Illinois twice in the last couple weeks. They led by 2 at Northwestern with 35 seconds to go. Lost that game in overtime. Blew an 8-point lead in the final 7 minutes to Michigan State a couple Saturdays ago. Obviously, the Nebraska one we just talked about. They did the same thing at Maryland on Saturday and came out with a win, but they damn near lost that one. Maryland had a fast break with a chance to take the lead late in the game after Illinois led by 7 with 3 minutes to go. So it's just, this is what they've done. And this worries me because I think they have the talent on this team to make a real run in the NCAA tournament. I think they're really, really good. But, if they can't close out games and they have trouble like this, when you get in an arena and it's loud and people are pulling for an underdog, which they're going to be a high-ranked team, high-seeded team, and momentum's a big part of the tournament. I don't know if they're going to have the composure to do it. We'll see. I like Illinois a lot, but that was a real bad loss. I thought maybe the way they actually were able to pull out the Nebraska game, pull out the Maryland game, maybe they got over it a little bit. But no, this was a real, real bad loss. Possibly the upset of the night came in the SEC as LSU upset number 17 Kentucky 75-74. Crazy game. Maybe not a massive upset from a point spread perspective. It was only a 5.5-point spread, but in terms of the caliber of the two teams and kind of like public perception, crazy end of the game. Kentucky was actually down 4 with under a minute to play. Rob Dillingham, who is an elite scorer who's been shooting up draft boards, drives in, makes a ridiculous and one finish, knocks down the free throw, cuts the lead to 1. After a Jordan Wright turnover for LSU, Dillingham then hits a ridiculous pull-up jump shot to give Kentucky the lead in the waning seconds, and then LSU comes back down And Jordan Wright, the Vandy transfer who turned it over on the previous possession, drives to try to score at the rim, gets blocked, rebounds his own miss, and throws it to Tyrell Ward, who caught it in midair and basically alley-oop layupped it at the buzzer to beat Kentucky at home. How about LSU? Back-to-back big upset wins. They trailed by 16 on Saturday at South Carolina, who was ranked 11th in the country. They come back and win the game outright, and then go back home and beat number 17 Kentucky. This was a team who lost to Nicholls State early in the season, right? And so Matt McMahon, who came over from Murray State, has done a heck of a job turning this team around this year. And there's no doubt he can coach. Now, he's going to need to get some real dudes in there if he wants to win at LSU and keep that job for a long time. He's not going to be able to just, at LSU, a program like that, you're not going to be able to just, bring in guys who are lower level guys and get the most out of them. I mean, I respect it. As a coach, I respect what Mac McMahon has done this year, but you got to go get some dudes after this year. I mean, you have the ability to do it now. You've shown you can win. You've shown you're a good coach. Go get some dudes now and turn that program back to where it should be. Kentucky, on the other hand, just another disappointing performance, right? I mean, at what point is Calipari going to get this team to play consistently? At what point is Calipari going to realize that his best player comes off the bench and plays only 23 minutes per game? Rob Dillingham is their best player. Antonio Reeves is really good, but Rob Dillingham is an elite scorer. He's an NBA lottery pick. I don't think that's crazy to say anymore. I mean, he played 20 minutes tonight, right? Like, it's just, that's ridiculous. He's averaging 23 minutes a game. He's shooting 45% from three. He averages 15 points a game in just 23 minutes a game. This is a guy who should be playing 30 minutes a game. And considering that the team is so bad defensively anyway, you could make the argument, well, he doesn't defend all that well. Nobody on Kentucky defends all that well. So at that point, play your best offensive players. Play the guys who are going to ball out. That guy is a stud. I mean, without him, they lose the game, by 6 or 7 points. He single-handedly willed them back into that game in the final minute. But Kentucky, once again, every time they take a step forward, it feels like they take another one right back. They cannot take multiple steps forward. They go after losing 3 out of 4. They beat Ole Miss by double digits at home. They go into Auburn, a place only one time has a team won in the past 3 seasons, and they win by double digits, 70-59. They come right back out, and they lose to a bad, below-average LSU team who is at the bottom of the SEC. Terrible loss. This hurts for Kentucky. I mean, they're going to be a 6 or a 7 seed the way they're playing right now. Unless the committee just gives them the blue blood ranking treatment, I don't see them as a 5 seed or better. I think they're going to be a 6 at best, unless they just run the table or win the SEC tournament. Best game of the night comes in the Mountain West. No surprise that conference has been a battle all year long between top teams. It seems like home teams have found ways to win and actually win relatively big and cover numbers. New Mexico did not cover tonight, but they did get the win by just 2 against Colorado State. This was an incredible game. There was 6 lead changes in the final minute 17 of the game. Isaiah Stevens, who I think might be the best point guard in the country, he's probably going to win the Player of the Year in the Mountain West. It's going to go to him or Great Osibor, I think, from Utah State. I think Isaiah Stevens deserves it. But he went to the line in this crazy environment in the pit, a place New Mexico rarely loses, and he knocks down 2 clutch free throws to give Colorado State a 1-point lead with 7.2 remaining. Unfortunately for the Rams, New Mexico goes down the other way. I thought it was a big coaching mistake from Colorado State to not call timeout after Isaiah Stevens makes his second free throw. I would have called timeout and set my defense, maybe gone zone. UNLV was getting to the rim at will there, which is what ended up happening. Jamal Mashburn Jr. went coast to coast in 4 seconds and got basically a pretty easy layup. He was fouled after he released the ball, so it was an and one, but it was pretty much like a wide open layup. It was not good defense, and it just felt like if you call timeout there and either set your defense or switch defenses there, you make it much more difficult for UNLV to score. They didn't have any pressure. New Mexico to score. They didn't have really any pressure on the ball. So Mashburn was able to get a full head of steam going downhill. I thought that was a big coaching mistake. Colorado State had a shot to win it at the buzzer. They got the ball advanced to half court, called their last time out, which was a good play. But huge win for the Lobos here. Tough loss for Colorado State. I thought if they had won tonight, Colorado State was going to be at least a 5 seed. With the loss, they're probably a 6, depending on how they do in the conference tournament and how they finish the season. I think New Mexico's probably a 7, maybe a 6, but they didn't play. I think Colorado State is a better team, but I like New Mexico too. It's going to be interesting to see how the Mountain West does in this year's NCAA tournament, right? Since 2016, with the exception of the San Diego State run to the Final Four into the championship game last season, the Mountain West was 1-15 in the NCAA tournament besides that. So they've really struggled in the NCAA tournament as a whole. And even though San Diego State had that run last year, the only other win they had was back, I believe, 2016. They had a run to the Sweet 16 back in 2011 when they lost to Kemba Walker and the Yukon Huskies back when they had Kawhi Leonard. But essentially, the Mountain West has struggled in the tournament. I want to see if they have a good year this year because everybody seems to be super high. Apparently, they're saying 5, 6, maybe even 7 teams could get in if UNLV were to win the conference tournament. But I don't think Nevada's a tournament team. I do think the rest of those teams, Boise State, Colorado State, New Mexico, Utah State, really good conference. But we'll see how that plays out. I like Colorado State a lot. I think they have a chance to make a Sweet 16 run. Other top 25 games, George Mason upsets Dayton, who was number 16 in the country, 71-67. They were a 3.5-point dog. That loss drops Dayton, who is a top 20 team in the country, to 3rd in their own conference because Richmond and Loyola Chicago have just 2 losses. That was Dayton's 3rd loss in conference. Richmond also holds the tiebreaker right now over Dayton because they won the first matchup. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I wonder if I assume Dayton's going to get in regardless. So if, say, Loyola Chicago were to win the conference tournament, that would be a bid steal from somewhere else. I'm sure a lot of those teams on the bubble are going to be rooting for Dayton to win that conference tournament. I'm not sure about Richmond. I think Richmond probably wouldn't get in either. They are really good, though. I don't know where they are bracketology wise. I'm going to look into that, but I like Richmond a lot. They could make some noise in March as well. Number 8, Duke destroys Miami 84-55, nearly a 30-point victory for the Blue Devils, who've played really good basketball on the road in the past month. John Shire's done a good job with that group, but that said, the ACC is just really down. This Miami team looks like they've given up at times this season, which is weird for a Jim Larranaga-led team. This is a team with multiple NBA players, Poplar and Normat Ochar, both NBA guys. I think Poplar, some people had him as a lottery pick. I don't know about that, but they've got a couple guys. I'm sorry, it wasn't Poplar. It was Keontae. Was it George? Yeah, Keontae George. So anyway, Miami not going to the tournament. This was their last hope. They had to win tonight. Would have been a big quad 1 win over a top 10 team. Instead, they dropped the game by 30, and they are now going to miss the NCAA tournament after making the Final Four last season. Rounding out the top 25, Marquette absolutely demolishes DePaul. No shock there. DePaul is one of the worst teams in the country, probably the worst. Not probably, they are the worst Power 5 or Power Conference team. Marquette was a 25.5-point favorite and covered the number easily. Elsewhere around, we'll run through some of these quick games that are impactful in the NCAA tournament. We had Clemson dominate Georgia Tech. That was a good, much needed win for Clemson. They can't drop any bad games, any games to bad teams the rest of the year as they're battling to get into the NCAA tournament. Not sure if they're going to, not sure if they deserve to, but they are right there on the bubble. Cincinnati, huge loss tonight, upset at home by Oklahoma State as a 10.5-point favorite. I believe that loss is going to end Cincinnati's NCAA tournament hopes unless they're able to win the Big 12 tournament. They're 16-10, but they're just 5-8 in Big 12 play. That was a quad 3 loss. That was a real bad loss tonight to a Oklahoma State team that has really struggled this year, has a losing record on the year, last place in the Big 12. St. John's defeats Georgetown 90-85. Not a huge game, but it was going to be interesting to see how St. John's players responded after the comments Rick Pitino made this last week about his players kind of degrading them. But they came out and won by 5, led by double digits for a decent chunk of the game, but were able to hold on late. Georgetown, they're the other team that might be the second worst team in the power conferences. Richmond wins on the road at Rhode Island to hold on to first place in the Atlantic 10. That was a big win for them. Samford survives an upset bid by Furman to keep a 2-game lead in the Southern Conference. That's a big win for Samford. Samford's projected to go to the tournament in the Southern Conference. Of course, they're going to have to win their conference tournament to do so. UTSA, my hometown running Roadrunners, nearly pulled off the upset against 20-5 South Florida. South Florida was coming off a massive win, maybe the biggest win in program history at home against FAU to seize control of the American Conference. UTSA actually led this game with under 2 minutes to go, but South Florida turned on their pressure, forced some turnovers, took the lead, ended up winning at 66-61. Big win for South Florida. That's a spot where you expect a team that's not experienced in being in that spot to lose, and they did a good job. It looked like they were going to lose. Everything was going against them. They found a way to win. Big win for South Florida. I think they might get an at-large bid even if they don't win the conference tournament. Memphis gets a much-needed win against Charlotte. Charlotte was actually 11-2 in the American going into that game. They were 1 game behind South Florida in the conference, but a big win for Memphis in terms of NCAA tournament possibilities. I don't think they're going to get in, but they had to have that one. Indiana State broke their 2-game losing streak with a 19-point victory over Valparaiso. They got in the win column after getting ranked for the first time since Larry Bird was in school there and then dropping 2 straight. Drake defeats Belmont to hold on to first place. To remain tied for first place in the Missouri Valley. They beat Belmont by 15. They are tied with Indiana State for first, although Indiana State holds the tiebreaker as the Sycamores beat the Drake Bulldogs the first time the two played. Providence, big time win for the Friars tonight on the road at Xavier, 79-75, quad 1 win for the Friars. And Coach English, it looks like the Friars may have moved in to last 4 in with that win. They're right squarely on the bubble. I think they're going to get in. I don't love their net ranking, but they have 2 guys who are pros. They have a lottery pick in Devin Carter, and Oduro is a pro. Both those guys are really good players. I don't know if Oduro is going to be like an actual guy who plays a ton in the NBA, but he's going to get drafted, and he's going to be a guy who at the very least will play overseas for multiple years. He's really, really talented, very skilled in the post, and has the ability to stretch the floor with the 3-ball and is a very good free throw shooter. Providence would be a very scary team in the tournament. It sounds weird, but I actually think they already lost Bryce Hopkins, but if they're healthy with their remaining roster, that's a team that's not bad at all. They play good defense. They've got some shooters, and they've got 2 guys who can absolutely score and fill it up when you need guys to do it most. Georgia smacked Vanderbilt tonight in the SEC to get back in the win column. Mississippi State gets a big win over Ole Miss, 83-71, as the Bulldogs move a step closer to making the tournament. Ole Miss, on the other hand, looks like despite being an SEC team that's going to finish with over 20 wins, they might just miss the NCAA tournament because they did not challenge themselves in the non-conference, and they now drop to 6-7 in the SEC, have a losing record in the conference. Going to be tough for the Rebels to get in. And speaking of the Rebels, the Runnin' Rebels, on the other hand, avenged their loss against Air Force. Somehow the Runnin' Rebels, who have been playing some excellent basketball, lost to Air Force 7 games ago by 32 points on their home floor. They followed it up by winning 5 straight games, and then lost a heartbreaker to Nevada last time out on Saturday. But the Runnin' Rebels came out focused tonight, and that was my best bet of the night. The Runnin' Rebels won by 29 as 6-point favorites. They're playing as good as anybody in the Mountain West right now. Going to be really interesting to see that conference tournament in the Mountain West, because this is going to be the most motivated team, and they might be playing the best. And if UNLV can get hot, they've got really good post presence inside. They play good basketball. They're good defensively. They play super hard. They're well coached. I think they could win the conference tournament. And if they do, that's going to be a bid stolen from somebody else. I don't think they can get in a large bid. I don't see it. I think in order to do that, you'd have to leave Nevada out, and especially losing that last game at Nevada. I don't think Nevada's an NCAA tournament team. And so, it's kind of one of those, like, if you put Nevada in, it's going to be hard to put UNLV in over Nevada. And I don't even think Nevada's going to get in. So I think UNLV's got to win the tournament to get in, but they look really, really good. That'll wrap up my college basketball recap for tonight. Wednesday, February 21st. Be back tomorrow to wrap up everything from the 22nd. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, what you would enjoy me to talk about, do better, what you liked, what you didn't like, anything like that. Follow the podcast, follow the Slobberknocker Sports Podcast Network, as we will be bringing you tons of more content. We're adding new channels each week. We're trying to build this into something big. So appreciate all your support. Hope you guys enjoy, all you hoop heads. And there's your recap of college basketball from Wednesday, February 21st. Enjoy tomorrow's games, and I'll be back tomorrow night. Talk to you then.